Bahugati Chandani Vanadvara Bahugati Chandani Hare Hamsa Parivar Jagacharya Rashtra Shri Shrimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Hamsa Parivar Jagacharya Rashtra Shri Shrimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Varga Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Govinda Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinam Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Ki Jai. Navadvitam Ki Jai. Thuradam Ki Jai. Jagannath Purinam Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Mari Ki Jai. Ganga Mari Ki Jai. Sangeeta Bhakti Ki Jai. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to Shri Guru Govinda. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Lada Daine. Prahlada Lada Daine. Yanyakashipur Vasha. Yanyakashipur Vasha. Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. Where were we yesterday? Someone misplaced my chapter again. See here, we were on chapter 4, wasn't it? Did we get to chapter 4?
No, we were on chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
I think we left off on text 4.
Chapter 5. Next text 4. Text 4.
That's when my bookmark is at. We started on chapter, last time we started on chapter 36, I think. So 42 in my chapter, which is 6 verses. And then we ended on
Text 5.
Yeah, text 5.
Karma Yoga, action, Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'll mark that spot.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama.
Okay, Bhagavad Gita class. Introduction prayer, page 1. Amajanya tamarasya yana jana shalakya chakamitam yinatasme sudave namaha Sri Chaitanya manobishtam shapitam dinaputale Swayam rupa karamayam dadati
Swapadam
svapatikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Parakam Malam Shri Guna Vaishnavascha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Bragamunat Pavitam Asas Jivam Savitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakas Vistam Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bando Vajapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vindastasvare Vispanusute Devi Pranamame Hare Hare Panchakapatarvayascha Vipasindhu Evascha Patitanam Padmanabhayo Vaishnavayo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Veta Gava Shri Vastigor Bhaktinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Oh, we're on chapter 5, Karma Yoga, action and Krishna consciousness. Starting off at text 5 today. We do 11 texts, Sanskrit and translation and purport. That way we hear the entire Bhagavad Gita in 3 months' time. Yat sankaya prayakyate shanyatam tadyago ati gamyate ekam shakyayam cha yogam cha yapashyate sapashyate. Translation: one who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works of devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. Text 6. Sinyasasa tu mahabaho yukamatum ayogata yoga yukto munibama na charina hikachati. Translation: unless one is engaged in devotional service to the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sage is purified by works of devotion to achieve the supreme without delay. Text 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitna vichitatma jitindraya sarvabhutama bhutam Patma Tuvan Apina Vidyate. One who works in devotion, who is pure of soul, who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Text 8 and 9. Naiva Kinchit karmati yukto manyate tatpadit pashyam sarvam siprasan jigadan asan gatan swapan swasvam pralapan visrajan vinam unishan api Indraya Ateshu Vartata Iti Darayam. Translation: a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them. Text 10. Brahmani adaya karmani samgam tiyappa karatoya Dipyate nasa papayina padma patram evambasha. Translation: one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the result unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. Text 11. Kayena manasya buddhya Kivaler Indrayayar Apti Yogina Karma Kuvatvanti Sangam Kayatvatma Sudaya Sarai. Translation: the yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with senses only for the purpose of purification. Text 12. Yukta karma bhavam tattva sanitam apnati nashitam ayukta karma karina pale sakto nivarayate. Translation: the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labors, becomes entangled. Text 13. Sarvakamani manasya sanyasyati sukham sasi navagave puridehe naiva karvana karanyam. Translation: when the body-living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all action, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Text 14. Na karmitva na karmamani lokasya jujate prahu na karma pahala samyogam sabhavastu pavarati. Translation: the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by modes of material nature. Text 15. Nandate kasyap chit papam achaiva sutram vidhu adyan nena vetram yanam tena muyate jatava. Translation: nor does the Supreme Spirit assume anyone's sinful pious activities embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Final text for the night, text 16. Yanena tutat agyananam yesham nashitam atmanam kesham harikya Yanam prakshashate yat param. Translation: when, however, one is enlightened with knowledge by which omniscience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in daytime. Turning to text 5. Text 5. Translation: one who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works and devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by two persons. By Samkhya philosophy, philosophical research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the supreme whole, but of the supreme spirit whole. Consequently, the spirit soul has nothing to do with the material world. Its actions must be in some relation with the Supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process of Samkhya, one has to become detached from matter. And in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to work of Krishna. Actually, both processes are the same. Although superficially one process appears to involve detachment, the other process appears to involve attachment. However, detachment from the matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One can see these things as they are. Please. No. Please. Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. That's the thing about this material world. Not everyone is looking to escape. So many are content with going through this rat race of chasing after their desires. Finding out, what's the next greatest movie, what's going to be on TV next, what's going to be, on the next, scrolling through your internet, and finding out what's the next best thing is going on. Some people, they are not looking to escape. They haven't had enough lifetimes in this world, in this universe yet, to realize that they're just chasing after something that is meaningless over and over and over again. But those of us who have had millions of lifetimes, we find ourselves tired, find ourselves just not in the mood to go chasing after stupid, frivolous things that everyone else is going after. We have become conditioned through this repeated birth and death. That's something to remember when we're out there preaching, when we're out there doing Sankirtan. Because you have many souls that are happy the way they are. They're happy suffering, happy chewing the chew. Even though there's all kinds of sufferings involved, they much rather do that than devotional service. Devotional service would, seem like bitter poison to them. Because they're so much indulged in their own senses. Who's got the best outfit? Who's driving the nicest car? Who's got the fanciest shoes? Who's got the name, fame, prestige? That's all the material people are concerned about. The ones who are quite content in this world. Although they gotta go through birth, death, disease, and old age over and over and over again. They just haven't been through it enough times for their soul to be aching, for their soul to be calling out through them, say, no, this is too much. I don't want this anymore. The person knows. I believe that people that, old souls that have millions of births, I believe they know deep down that they've been here for a while, and that they're tired. They're looking for a way out. And they just don't know how to do it. Maybe just don't know, which pathway to take, because gosh, look at the age of information. Google, how to escape this world, how to escape the matrix. Gosh, you given, there's Christianity, there's Islam, there's Judaism, there's Buddhism. There's all these, there's so many different pathways that one can take. So many different pathways that one can take. And that's why it's so confusing. Because everyone, seems to have the solution. Everyone seems to have it's our way or the highway, everyone else is wrong, we're the only ones right. There's so many are out there saying that they are the only right ones and everyone else is wrong. It can't be that way. As we know, God has revealed himself to all over the world in many different ways to attract people. He's attracted people through Christianity, attracted people through Islam, attracted people through Judaism, attracted people through many different ways, many different routes. The Dharma gets lost in the man's translation a lot of times. Kind of gets a little screwed up sometimes, and then we have fights between, one's Dharma and another's Dharma. Who's right, who's wrong. We forget it's all about trying to love God. And that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. It's like here it says, one who knows the position reached by the means of renunciation can also be attained by the works of devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. You can go on performing work, and you can be in renunciation. As long as this work is done in the service of the Lord, the service of Krishna. You're no longer being bound to this material world. You're actually being bound to Krishna. Your chains are breaking from this material world. Your chains are breaking, your bars are bending. And you're breaking away from this material entanglement through devotional service, through chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Maha Mantra, that's all that we need. Chant it each and every day, each and every moment, anytime that we find our mind idle, we gotta be chanting it. Chanting it, not just our 16 rounds, chanting it while we're doing our service. Chanting it, in our quiet time. When we are making real progress is when we come to a quiet state of mind, we can hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Going on in our mind without even having to try to think about it. It's just naturally going. That's how you know you're making progress. That's a state that we're trying to get to where our mind is continually chanting Hare Krishna. As long as we continue to chant Hare Krishna all throughout our day, do our 16 rounds every day, follow the Guru's instruction, and be sincerely involved in our service, chanting while we're doing our service. Your mind becomes purified. Your mind that becomes that natural position of the mind instead of having all these mundane thoughts that are floating around. Who's the greatest personality, or who are you at war with, or what's the greatest flavor of the week? I don't know. What sport team is making the most passes in the NFL? All those mundane things. Those go to the side and are replaced by the Maha Mantra. This is what we're trying to achieve. Because when the time of death comes for us, when you come to that quiet state of mind, we want to be We want to be able to hear in our mind the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Just got to hear that each and every moment. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is our renunciation. This is our service. The more that we can get lost into the mantra, the more that we surrender to it, the more it overtakes us, the more Krishna draws himself closer to us. We've got to make room for God to be in our head. We got to make room for God to be in our mind. We got to push out all these other material things that our mind wants to contemplate on, think about, and replace it with the Maha Mantra. Action in Krishna consciousness, that's through pure, loving, devotional service. There's no other way. Those who are wanting to escape this world, those who have spent millions of lifetimes are trying to get out, are wanting to get out, that just have had it with this rat race, chasing after these, so-called moments of happiness that are, you catch it and poof, it's gone. Oh, I just caught a little bit of happiness, poof, it's already gone. Oh man. Oops, I just caught another one. Poof, it's gone. That gets tiring. It's just so tiring. Day after day after day, year after year after year, chasing after these fleeting moments of happiness and lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Millions of lifetimes. That's why it's so important, the Sankirtan movement. Because there are so many souls out there that need to know how to get out. Need to know the secret. How to get back to God. How to escape this material world. We don't know until we go out there and chant, and sing and dance, distribute our books, and try to get these books into the hands of as many people as possible. Many of them, they'll get benefit, but they're not ready to leave yet. They still got many lifetimes, more lifetimes that they want to spend here. But every now and then, we find that rare soul, that rare jiva that is ready to surrender. Our book gets into their hands. And then they end up becoming a pure devotee. That's our lot and mission in life. To bring all these pure devotees back home to Krishna, back home to Godhead. That's the greatest service that one can do. Pleasing Krishna is one thing, but what's even greater, what pleases Krishna even more, is pleasing his devotees. Because Krishna will do anything for his pure devotees. He is surrendered to his pure devotees. He is captured by his pure devotees. So if you can please the pure devotee, it's It's better than just pleasing Krishna alone. Move on to the next text. Text 6. Unless one is engaged in devotional service to the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sages, purified by works of devotion, achieve the supreme without delay. Purport. There are two classes of sannyasis, or persons in the renounced order of life. The Mayavadis and sannyasis are engaged in the study of the Sankhya philosophy, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis are engaged in the study of Bhagavatam philosophy, which affords a proper commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Mayavadi sannyasis also study Vedanta Sutras, but use their own commentary, called the Sarika Bhashya, written by Sankaracharya. The students of the Bhagavata school are engaged in devotional service to the Lord, according to the Panchara regulations. And therefore, the Vaishnava sannyasis have multiple engagements in the transcendental service of the Lord. Vaishnava sannyasis have nothing to do with material activities, and yet they perform various activities in their devotional service to the Lord. Mayavadi sannyasis engage in studies of Sankhya and Vedanta and speculation, cannot relish transcendental service of the Lord. Because their studies become very tedious, they sometimes become tired of Brahman speculation, and thus they take shelter of the Bhagavatam without proper understanding. Consequently, their study of the Srimad Bhagavatam becomes troublesome. Dry speculations and impersonal interpretation by artificial means are all useless for the Mayavadi sannyasis. The Vaishnava sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service are happy in the discharge of their transcendental duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God. The Mayavadi sannyasis sometimes fall down from the path of self-realization and again enter the material activities of the philanthropic and altruistic nature, which are nothing more material engagements. Therefore, the conclusion is that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are better situated than the sannyasis engaged in simple Brahman speculation, although they too come to Krishna consciousness after many births. That's the thing, after many births. Gotta wonder just how many millions of births that we've been through. Person walking through the temple doors, discovering Krishna consciousness for the first time, has probably already been through millions of births already. If you think about it, they were searching for something more than the material world. Sorry, I'm a little tired tonight. My mind's a little slow. So we'll move on to text 7. Translation. One who works in devotion, who is pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Purport. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. Or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is in pure consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. Because the mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there's no chance of being deviated from Krishna, nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna, and he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna is only superficially offensive, because, as he had already explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons in the battlefield will continue to live individually as a soul and not be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only the dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who is personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Krishna.
Yeah.
It's closed.
Yeah.
Can I just be here for some time?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Kind of have to wonder, everyone there assembled at the battle of Kurukshetra, you have Krishna on that battlefield. What kind of past pious activities did they do to have that privilege to be on the battlefield, even on the opposite side, fighting against Krishna? Think about that. I mean, just to be present on the same battlefield as Krishna. Man, that must have been something. Because it seems like, even examples of Hiranyakashipu, Krishna uses his devotees sometimes, servants. Here, I want you to play this part. I want you to play a demon for 3 lifetimes. I want to fight against you. Ultimately, we're all here to serve Krishna. We're all here to play our different parts.
Did you go up there?
No, he went downstairs. We're here to play our different parts. Real devotees willing to serve anywhere. If it means serving Krishna, He'll go and serve Krishna in the gates of hell. Devotee is willing to go anywhere to serve Krishna. We'll move on to text 8 and 9. A person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with your objects and that he is aloof from them. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently, he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and the fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification. In Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in things of the senses. Activities such as seeing, hearing, speaking, vacuuming, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servant of the Lord. Any questions or comments so far? Text 10. Translation. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. Purport. Here, Brahmani means in Krishna consciousness. The material world is a sum total manifestation of the 3 modes of material nature, technically called pradhana. The Vedic hymns, Sarvam etad Brahma Tasmad etad Brahma Nama Rupam Anam Cha Jayate, and in Bhagavad Gita, Mama Yona Mahad Brahma, indicate that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahma. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Ishopanishad is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that, therefore, everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. Even one's material body being a gift of the Lord for carrying out particular types of action can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is beyond contamination by sinful reaction, exactly as a lotus leaf. The remaining in the water is not wet. The Lord also says in the Gita, Mayi Sarvani Karmani Sannyasya, resign all works unto me, Krishna. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of the material body and senses. But a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna, and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna. Text 11. Yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Purport. By acting in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of the Krishna, Any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even of the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna-conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sadhutara, can be easily performed by acting Krishna-conscious. Sri Rupa Goswami, in his Bhakti Rasmita Sindhu, describes this as follows: Iha yasya ahir dashi karmana anasya gira mitalas vas api asyat vasu ivanamutta sa uchayate. Person in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, the service of Krishna with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world. Although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities, he has no false ego, nor does he believe that he is the material body, nor that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not the body, and the body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, intelligence, words, life, wealth, etc., whatever he may have within his possession to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna, and he is devoid of the false ego that leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Any last minute questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
So,
Microphone?
yeah.
Uh, 7:15 and 4:30 a.m. 7:15 a.m. and 4:30 a.m.
And what time is open?
7:15 until 8 o'clock. 45 minutes.
So, my question. So my question, it's not working. My question is about Krishna consciousness, and so how do we know when we're acting in Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness instead of Maya consciousness?
So your question is, how do we know we're acting in Krishna consciousness and not in Maya consciousness? We're acting in Krishna consciousness. Right now we're reading the Bhagavad Gita. That's acting in Krishna consciousness. We're chanting our rounds and our focus on the Maha Mantra. That's acting in Krishna consciousness. When you're washing dishes for Krishna, that's an action in Krishna consciousness. When it's Maya consciousness, it's because you're doing it for yourself. So that's a big difference between what we're doing here at the temple, because, people wash dishes in the regular world. People, clean in the regular world. People cook in the regular world. I can go out and get a job cooking and get paid for it. What am I going to be using that money for? For myself. To indulge in my own senses. That's a Maya consciousness. Because I'm indulging in myself. I'm gratifying my own senses. But when we act in Krishna consciousness, like I was saying, it's like, well, I cook here. I'm not cooking for myself. I'm cooking for Krishna. I'm eating his leftovers. But ultimately, I'm cooking for Krishna first. Then I'm also cooking for his devotees, which is even more precious. As I was telling you, because pleasing Krishna's pure devotees is even better than pleasing Krishna himself, because pleasing his devotees pleases them all so much more. He's willing to bend over backwards for his devotees. He is surrendered to his pure devotees. He is bound by the ropes of love by his pure devotees. So if you really want to get Krishna's favor, you find yourself a pure devotee, and you please that pure devotee. Spiritual master is where it's at. You gotta please your spiritual master. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hey Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm reading.
You reading?
Yeah,
What are you reading, Prabhu?
Bhagavatam. Sir. Bhagavatam.
Oh, really? What chapter? What story?
It's Kapil Dev's instruction to the Devahuti.
Oh my God, we're on that. We're on that part.
Very nice. It's on 30th chapter at this moment, and it's so awesome. It's about total about devotion, full of devotion. So nice.
You're reading the 13th chapter of the third canto?
30, yeah,
30th. Okay.
30th. Full of
Well, that's
devotion.
good.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Okay, Prabhu. I'll be seeing
See
you
you
later.
soon. Hare Krishna.